Hey, welcome back to Evil's Comics. I'm Evil Mike, and I got a review for you today. From Boom Studios, we're going to be talking about Specs, issue number 4. It is written and created by David Booher and Chris Shehan. Chris Shehan also does the art. We got colors by Roman Stevens and the letters by Jim Campbell. Before we get started, please like, comment, subscribe on this guy's channel. It does help a whole bunch. Now for the review. Alright, so we are at the ultimate last issue, supposedly, right? In this little 4-issue series. I'll do the review and give my final thoughts afterwards. But basically, we're with Ted and Kenny in the Magic Specs. They're out in the woods and they are doing whatever they can at this point to destroy these specs, but are not having any luck. They basically try all the different tools inside I think Kenny's like dad's shed or something like that, and nothing ends up working. As you can see, they even try burning them and it doesn't work either. Basically at this point there's a brief conversation, between Ted and Kenny, and basically they're getting ready because Ted is about to be picked up by Officer Kingsley before he's awaiting trial. They basically, they show him with the officer and getting picked up, and then after that they head to the trial. We find out that he does get a state appointed defender, and it's like her first year out of school, but come to find out the charges do get dismissed. There's not enough evidence to prove that he murdered Skunk, and as you can see, the family rejoices. After they get back, Kenny kind of notices something about Ted's house. Bam! It's up for sale. After the whole situation in the town accusing their boy of murder, the parents have basically had enough and they're moving to another state. And basically at this point, Ted's kind of he wants to move too, and says so to Kenny. We do know that Kenny did make that wish, and he kind of should have worded it a little better. But this is kind of the wish coming true, that he wanted, Ted to leave. I think it's Somerville behind, and that's kind of what happened. He ended up leaving Somerville behind. They do show what happens to his house over the years, and basically it stays. Everybody's kind of weirded out. It's seen as like a cursed house, and eventually it's torn down over the years. They do go back to that night right before Ted leaves, and Kenny, eventually puts the glasses in a box with a whole bunch of bricks, and he's about to toss it out, and right before, you can see he's crying over here, and he's about to make a wish, and nope, he changes his mind again, and he tosses the specs with the box into the river. Right before he ends up leaving, he is greeted by his best friend Ted, who shows up kind of randomly, and he's like, "Hey man, you thought I was going to leave without saying goodbye?" Because this is on the night of the move or whatever. These specs are brought up as far as like what happened to him and stuff like that. Hey, did you make a final wish? And Ted brings it up that he should have, but it didn't feel right, kind of thing. And he's like, "Well, what would you have wished?" And he's like, "Was that first wish, your ultimate wish?" And finally, and bravely enough, Ted, Kenny he confesses to Ted after all this time that he has been in love with him ever since the 6th grade. At first, Ted's all happy, and he's like, "Yeah, man, we're best friends. I love you too." And Kenny's like, "Nah, man, I should have done this. You don't get this." And right after that, Ted's like, wait, you love me like that, like a boyfriend kind of thing? And he starts asking kind of like, I would say, elementary questions, like, you want us to go on dates like girls kind of thing? Kenny gets a little, upset. He feels like he made, a really bad error of judgment, and he starts to leave. Ted eventually, catches up, and he's like, no, I'm just trying to understand this, He was like, let me, and basically the whole sum of the conversation, he's like, hey, we're best friends, nothing is going to change that. I don't have the same feelings, that you have for me, but I don't see anything wrong with that. And he was like, but we are best friends, and everything that we've been through, our relationship, stuff like that, I wouldn't want anything to change that regardless. He was like, it's one of my favorite things in the world, kind of thing. The book jumps a bunch forward, and we finally find out what's going on. It's basically Kenny, and he is at his best friend's funeral. They are a lot in the They are a lot in the future, and we get a lot of what happened to Ted after he left Somerville. Basically, and it's Somerton. I keep saying like Somerville or something like that, but close enough, right? But basically, he went on to. I think he like graduated from Harvard. He got married, had a family. After that, had a chance to come back to like Somerton and teach or something like that. He eventually like coached for their baseball team or something like that, and eventually, I think in his 70s or something, he ended up passing away with a stroke on like the semifinal game of their championship or something like that. Kenny is here, and you basically find out that he is telling this whole 4-issue series. He has been telling the funeral that showed up for everybody, that showed up for Ted, and his passing and everything. And basically, you kind of find out it's that the whole sum up of the story. I apologize, some loud people out there, but the whole sum up of the story is basically. It's not the wishes that we would make, it's the wishes that we don't make kind of thing. It's kind of like the chances that we don't take, because at the very end, he was brave enough to confess his love to, Ted, and after that, they kind of had like, with that not being there anymore, they were able to live their lives and have a good, friendship kind of thing, stuff like that. And that's basically the sum up of the story. The very last page, we do get a hint, and like I mentioned this before, it might not be the end of the story, but we do get what happened to these specs, and they were in the box, they do get released, they flow down, and sure enough, this futuristic dude ends up picking them up, and when he picks them up, they turn into these like futuristic glasses. There is some writing on the wall that he glances before he takes off, saying that, whatever you wish, you see, the end. So there might be like some more, in the future for specs, but as far as this is telling us, that this is the end of the story. My final thoughts were, honestly, in the beginning, I was not a fan of this book. I'm not a big fan of a book that sits on my shelf that I have to go back and like tell myself I have to read it. And with this book in the beginning, it kind of was like that, because I kind of felt like it was a little more misleading, and that's my only problem with the book. I felt like it was going to be a massive like horror type story. It was hinted at in the prologue in the previews magazine before this book came out. Now, with that being said, without the horror stuff, and then it was actually a really good story. And actually, this issue, like the very end, when you're finding out that all this was being told at the funeral, and it was just like, this crazy story about these magic specs and the wishes that you should take. I really enjoyed the story. I think there's more story that could be told. Given the right people, maybe Booher and Shehan will give us another volume or something like that. I don't know. But hey, that's my review. Let me know what you thought about this series down below. One of the greatest things about this series, it was only a 4-issue series, so it wasn't like it was a long expanded, it took forever to figure out what was going on kind of thing. But let me know, how did you like it? Did you love it? Did you not like it? Let me know those thoughts down below, please, please, please. I love reading the comments and interacting with you. It is so dope. Alright guys, I will see y'all later. I will let y'all go. I got more reviews coming, a lot of reviews coming. I will see y'all later.